Hey guys, what the heck is going on? Sam Cox here with Team Empire and coming at you guys today with a video that I've really been trying to make for a while now and one that I've been really wanting to get on the channel for a minute now as well. And I know I say that about a lot of videos. This is one that definitely that needs to kind of be talked about a little bit more. I feel like a lot of people don't bring up the subject enough, so that's why we are here today. And nothing against anybody that has GOAT content on YouTube. To be honest with you, I love 99.9% of the videos that I see on YouTube, like as far as GOAT format and other retro formats and stuff, you guys are out there doing an amazing job. If you guys are watching this, just know that you're doing awesome. And as far as content goes, I love all y'all's content more than I love anything that I make. But we all, as a community, can do better at talking about what people need to be citing because I feel like it's kind of just people trying to keep secrets, maybe. I don't know. There's a lot of people that aren't really talking about these kind of subjects. So I kind of wanted to go over a few different decks today and kind of talk about what cards are good to side against those decks. So um, now today we're going to make these 10 cards right here just a quick topic of discussion. We're probably going to make part 2, part 3, part 4 of this video more than likely. For starters, let me know down below in the comments what cards you guys think should be in your side decks, why, what you side them against, etc. I know that there's probably dozens of them that I'm missing, but these are just the ones right off the top of the bat that are kind of fresh on my mind for a few different reasons. It's decks that I look for when I'm kind of like siding against, and decks that I come prepared to side against. Also, these are kind of decks that I've been playing a lot here recently, and I know what really kind of hurts me, if that makes any sense. So, like a bunch of videos on this channel and the different segments that we have on this channel, we're probably going to have multiple segments of this. So, let me know down below in the comments what you guys think need to be in people's side decks, what you're siding right now, and why you side them. Again, like what decks, etc. But we're gonna hop into this discussion over here. So, first of all, we have Scapegoat. Let's talk about why Scapegoat is good. First of all, um, I feel like everybody out there is getting wrecked by OTK decks or reasoning gate slash reasoning mill, turbo, all this crazy, whatever you want to call it. There's so many names for those kinds of decks, but decks that play monster gate, reasoning, that OTK, that kinds of stuff. Scapegoat's really good because obviously you can just chain it, and it's going to be really hard for your opponent to get 8,000 damage in on top of killing 4 tokens. Things like Wabaku and Threatening Roar are also really good when it comes to these kinds of decks, but these can't be chained to something like a Jinzo hitting the field. If Jinzo hits the field by like a normal summon, or if Jinzo hits the field due to Monster Gate or reasoning, they'd have to chain it before that. A lot of people do, and that's a whole nother discussion. I guess we'll get to that here in a second. But Scapegoat's really good because Jinzo doesn't shut off things like Scapegoat, and again, it kind of puts up more of a defense as well. And the thing about Scapegoat, I really feel like is good is because it doesn't just stop it for one turn. If they can't get past all these Scapegoats, you kind of have defense for remaining turns as well too. And it's a quick play. I love Scapegoat. Scapegoat has so many uses in this format. Obviously it was in the deck that kind of started this whole entire format, which was obviously GOAT format, but and it was GOAT control. But I really feel like over the years that deck and just Scapegoat in general has become less and less popular. But it can be used for so many things, and I'm thinking about making a video just talking about the amount of ways that Scapegoat just can be utilized. Like, oh man, the list goes on and on. Like 5 things that come to mind right now. When somebody activates like creature swap, you can change Scapegoat, or Scapegoat's really good in decks if you are playing a reasoning gate deck, or if you're siding against a reasoning gate deck. I mean, there's so many just different options why Scapegoat's great. Scapegoat's great in Monarchs, in my opinion. A lot of people don't play Scapegoat in Monarchs, but I love activating like Metamorphosis on the Scapegoat, steal their monster, and then tribute for the Monarch, that kind of stuff. But that's its own different video, and then I'll kind of give away half of it, but we may talk about that later on. Next is Spell Canceller. I think out of the whole last like 3 months or so, I think I've been playing mainly Reasoning Gate Turbo. I've just been running that less is more dot deck. It plays like 4 monsters. It's a super fun deck. But when I play against somebody and they play Spell Canceller, It's freaking GG for me, bro. Like, I can't get over this card, and a lot of decks really can't get over this card unless they already have like a light or dark in the grave and they can just get a chaos monster. But in terms of normal summoning, a lot of these Reasoning Gate decks don't really play anything. That's a 1800 that you can summon. I know a lot of them play Crane. That's like the main level for. Some of them play stuff like Thunder Dragon, Sangan, Serpent, and stuff like that. But really, that does nothing for Spell Canceller either. So this is a tribute card. Obviously, it's a level 5, and it's kind of a little bit harder to get out. But like I said, most of the time that people play this against me, or if I'm playing this against another Reasoning Gate deck, even if they do play a bunch of lights and darks and chaos monsters and stuff, so many times it's just straight up GG right then and there, because like you can't snatch steal this thing, you can't, I mean, you can't do anything to this card. It is such a powerful card, and I do believe this card got reprinted in Dual Devastator and in Legendary Collection Kaiba. I don't know, it was recently just like reprinted multiple times as like a secret and an ultra. So if you want to get this card IRL, you can actually bling this card out too as well. So Spell Canceller, guys, get yourself a playset, because if you're not playing against Reasoning, I can guarantee you that this is probably the absolute best card that you can side against those kinds of decks, especially if you're playing things that play Metamorphosis, or things that play, obviously chaos monsters and stuff like that. I say that because you're able to put a monster on the field without committing your normal summon, and this can be your normal summon. And this is something that can also be, special summon, from the grave by stuff like Call the Haunted and stuff like that too. So it's a machine and it's a wind. It's kind of weird, but hey, it does the job. So next we're going to talk about Necrovalley, and this is a card that technically you can play 6 of. Um, and these first 5 cards, kind of 6-ish, are really cards that I'm talking about siding against OTK decks, because, like I said at the beginning of the video, this is part of the video is me talking about Reasoning Gate, Turbo, OTK, because I've been playing so much of it recently, and these are the cards that hurt me the absolute worst. So just kind of straight from the horse's mouth, Necrovalley is absolutely awesome because it stops things, like, oh, man, Soul Release. Stops things like Chaos Monsters. Necrovalley is really good against just really random cards like Premature, Magician of Faith, Call the Haunted. Just so many cards that you wouldn't even just think about on a normal basis, like that this card's really good against. Because you think like things that cycle or do the whole grave to banish to field the grave, kind of Democ kind of comes to mind, and kind of stuff like that, or Sacred Crane, that kind of stuff, Soul Release, that's really good what comes to mind. But so does Chaos Monsters as well. But just normal stuff, like I said, Premature, Call the Haunted, Magician of Faith, things that just return other cards from the grave into play again. So yeah, Necrovalley is definitely a really good card. Again, you can play 6 of this because you can play 3 Terraforming with it. So just kind of food for thought right there. Waboku and Threatening Roar. A lot of people will tell you they do the same thing. A lot of people will tell you that it really doesn't matter. But really, when you're talking about just kind of, um, you know, activating it, chaining it to your opponent, activating Monster Gate, or chaining it to Breaker, Heavy, MST, Dust Tornado, Mobius, that kind of stuff. They really kind of do the same thing. I would say majority of the time. And to be honest with you, Waboku kind of had a weird ruling incident, because it does something a little bit different in 2002 format, depending on who you're talking about. So in Go, the way that this card is read on text, and then what it actually does is kind of a little bit different too as well. So make sure you guys know the rulings on this. But yeah, that and Threatening Roar kind of really do the same thing. But these are really just kind of, if you're gonna play these cards in your side against things like OTK, again, Reasoning, Gate, whatever, Turbo, just summon everything to the field type decks, chain these to things like Monster Gate and Reasoning or whatever. Or if this is set and they play Reasoning, call 6 so that Jinzo doesn't get put on the field, and then just lock this thing out, because so many people just try to activate this thing, chaining it to Jinzo already being on the field. Granted, those people may not know what they're doing, but I've seen that happen so many times. So just unless you're going to call 6, chain these. The next card we're going to talk about is Anti-Spell Fragrance, and this is kind of a card that can go with a lot of different decks, if I'm being honest with you guys. And it kind of combos with the next card that I wanted to talk about. Anti-Spell is a great card that goes against, like I said, just Reasoning Gate decks. It doesn't really stall them completely, and to be honest, you have to set cards as well. So it kind of hinders both players, but it does slow a lot of stuff down, especially trap type decks. Like if you were a warrior or a stun or a just a solemn judgment dot deck player, the anti-spell fragrance is really good because granted you're taking out a lot of your deck space for a lot more traps and that kind of stuff too. So it's not going to hurt you as much because you're not playing as many spells. So anti-spell is a really good card. A lot of people didn't even know that this was GOAT, to be honest with you, and it was. I want to say the first printing was either Turbo Pack or a Game Boy or something, but it really wasn't around a whole lot back then. Highly doubt many people even played it. It's kind of one of those cards that crept up in the last 10 years or so, but really obviously was printed back in Go format. A deck that is really cool that I've been in the middle of working on, and you know what, I'm not even a big stun player, but I think that this is just a really cool combo. Mobius comboed with anti-spell because your opponent has to set their spells, and they most of the time won't be able to chain them because they're just trying to activate Upstart and Graceful and stuff like that too. So I think that Mobius and anti-spell, anybody out there that wants to just really troll your opponent, play upon anti-spell, make them set things like Reasoning and Upstart, and then just blow that crap up with Mobius. It's a really fun deck. I started to test it on DB here and there. Pissed off a few people, but I'm not a big stun deck player, so I try to get away from that stuff. But yeah, Mobius is a really good card. That kind of goes along the same lines as Jinzo. Now I'm going to go into more or less kind of back row hate slash warrior aggro decks. They're all kind of in the same, really depending on builds, but a lot of them are. Mobius is a really good card that just kind of gets rid of back row. I play a lot of cards like Spy or other flip effect monsters or Decoichi or, like I said again, Metamorphosis. Things allow me to tribute for one monster. And Mobius is really good at just kind of blowing up the back row. Really kind of baits out the Solemn Judgment just right then and there, or just kind of forces things to activate, or you just get a +2 off of it, which is really really good. So yeah, Mobius is really good in that aspect. This card is very 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 underrated in Go. If you're playing a deck that plays monsters that kind of get on the field that don't exactly take your normal summon, again, the first thing that comes to mind is Metamorphosis. It's not necessarily a monster, it's a spell, but stuff like that, and you're playing against very back row heavy decks or aggro decks, I feel like Mobius is a really good option for those types of decks. Not only just because they play a lot of back row, but also because um, it's bigger than all of their monsters most of the time, unless they're playing some Chaos version in it, and even at that, it's bigger than Sork. But it's 2400, so it's nothing to mess around with. Jinzo is kind of the same, uh, idea pretty much, like just kind of shuts off all back row. Jinzo is one of those cards that normal summon Jinzo does not ever. It's not a card that you see coming. So if you're playing a lot of back row, it's not a whole lot you can do to that unless you're playing Solemn Judgment. And if you have one of them at that time, then good for you. So next we're talking about Dust Tornado. Dust Tornado is a card that if you're playing 1 or 2 in the main, make sure you're siding the rest of them because um, if I'm being 100% honest with you, in face Scapegoat or Necrovalley or anti-spell fragrance, any of these other cards that like I'm talking about, you do not want to see these cards played against you if it really hurts you that much and you're playing Dust Tornado and you could be playing more copies of it. So Dust Tornado is your second, third, and fourth MST. And it kind of allows you to obviously set things during the end phase, which is beneficial at times. But I know this is kind of a no-brainer. It's like obviously Dust Tornado has been heavily played since 2005 when this format was, its thing. But just a reminder that this is a card because I feel like a lot of people don't side as much back row hate as they need to. For whenever they're playing decks that can afford to play these types of cards against other cards like again Solemn Judgment, just really back row heavy decks. 3 Dust Tornado versus 3 Royal Decree. That's kind of like an argument that I have with myself all the time because I really like Royal Decree, but again, I'm not a big fan of Floodgates, and I'm not a really big fan of playing continuous uh, traps or spells or whatever because it kind of makes it to where you have to play things like Solemn Judgment, or else you could be really susceptible to Heavy Storm, because this is already going to be your one card on the field that's not chainable. So, anyway, I feel like I kind of ramble on this tornado. Spy is a really good card, and I've talked about how Spy started the chain of events that really kind of led to this whole entire format really shifting a year or two ago. Which led to Blade Knight not being able to destroy, which led to like level 2 swordsman, which I mean, it was just this whole big thing that really kind of started with Chaos Warriors, if I'm being honest with you, because Spy kind of shut that deck down before people were playing level 2 swordsman. But Spy is just a really good card if you're playing decks that play Dekoichi, or decks that play Merchant, level 1 Mimic, that kind of stuff. I do a lot of trading out those cards for Spy if you're playing against decks that play things like Kaiku or Blade Knight. A lot of other things come to mind, Zambira, that kind of stuff. Warrior decks really. Gravekeeper Spy is a really good card to side against those, because it really just kind of, that 2000 defense, man, it's just kind of really hard to get around that sometimes. And yeah, it kind of combos well with things like Jinzo, Mobius, and just Zaborg and a lot of other really cool cards, because it's kind of hard to get over. And then the monsters that they're trying to get over it with, like Kaiku, for instance, just kind of get rid of them with things like Mobius, or hit their back row. I could talk about Spy for 10 years. Just this card's a really good card, and if you're not siding it and you're maining things, again, like level 1 Mimic and that kind of stuff, because I don't really like to play Spy in like Mimic Chaos, so to speak, not as much, but I definitely do side it. So we're going to definitely do more discussions over what you need to be siding in this format, and I really didn't cover a whole lot, but let me know again down below what you guys are siding, why you're siding it, what decks you're siding it against. Let me know that secret spice that you guys like to side against certain decks and that kind of stuff. We only went over 10 cards, and technically we only really talked about siding against like 2 different decks, like OTK / Reasoning Gate, and then we got aggro, which is what these are for, Backrow, which kind of again go hand in hand. But we're going to talk about a lot of different decks and other different options that we can side. Just let me know down below what decks also you guys want to know what to side against, but as well let me know what you guys are siding in. I'll give you a shout out, and kind of talk about together the cards that we side. So again, I really had wanted to do this discussion for a while. I feel like it's something that hadn't been talked about a ton as far as YouTube and just in the Go format community. So kind of wanted to shed some light on it, and we'll do some more of this stuff. But until next time, feel free to like, subscribe, and all that good stuff, and we will see y'all later.